feel oppressed by the Union Jack in the Australian flag? Is that a symbol of all that was wrong with our colonial past?
Thanks for the leading question, Tim, and hello, James. Go the Tigers. I don't feel oppressed by the flag, but and I have no problem with the debate because we should have these debates. But isn't this typical of Australia? We're having the debate about the flag, but we're not having a debate about whether we should become a republic or not. Surely that should be the key debate on should we become a republic? How do we become a republic before we start messing? With this whole debate, we tend to just piddle around the edges with this. And I would say that although I'm not afraid of this debate, it's still piddling around the edges.
I just think it's pathetic, James, that one of these big lefty unions, this is the issue they want the ALP to address at their
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I'm a member of a union right now, I care about the cost of living, I care about housing prices for my kids and myself, I care about the rise of AI, yet if I were to Google my own union right now, I would see them all wrapped up in a symbolic social justice cause that's going to not change anything about my life. And I'd be feeling absolutely ripped off about that.
Yeah, well, what kills me is they go on about freedom. It doesn't represent freedom, and it represents oppression. And I'm from Irish descent. I don't stick up for the Poms normally, but that British flag has stood for freedom, and it's fought for freedom. And it's the Australian flag. People have fought and died for freedom under it. Second World War, First World War. And Justin, these unions, the whole union movement, you cannot be in the parliament for the Labor Party unless you are a member of a union. How oppressive is that? Where's the freedom in that? You must be a union member to represent Labor in Parliament.
G'day, legends. Picture this. 70% of Australians reckon this country's heading in the wrong direction. 70%. That's not a grumble over a flat white price hike. That's practically the whole pub agreeing the barman's watering down the beer. And what are our political leaders debating? The flag. The actual flag. While your rent's doing gymnastics and your grocery bill needs its own mortgage, Canberra's having a very serious chinwag about a Union Jack in the corner of a piece of cloth. Quick favour, if you're loving this breakdown, let me see you hit that subscribe button right now. Over 90% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now let's get back to it.
Yeah, look, I don't like that, and that's for the Labor Party to figure out. But let me ask you a question, though, Chris, though. Do you think they shouldn't be allowed to have the debate? I mean, do you really think we should shut down people who wanted to have a debate like that?
No, we're talking about it here. I'm always happy to talk about anything. I just think it's pathetic priorities, and they're kind of misguided in their language, especially when they go to statues as well. And James, just to get your thoughts on this, just to finish up on this, it comes at a time when a survey shows us that 70% of the population's worried about the direction of the country. I think that's more important than a flag.
I think so. And, we talk about, where could possibly have Pauline Hanson's rise come from? Why are so many people going to One Nation? That is the exact poll that I come to. People, they're not as entirely attracted to the antics that come with her or some of the statements that she makes, but they are absolutely sick of the direction of the nation. Labor and Liberal alike are both tainted by just years of ineptitude in leadership, and they are just looking for another choice. Yeah. So I just think, we go, okay, how much damage will this Tommy Robinson interview cause? How much damage can Malcolm Roberts' comments cause? Look, I would love them to cause a bit more damage because of how stupid they are, but they are going to disappear into the sand because people are just outraged about the direction of the country and fearing for the future.
Spot on. When it comes to the Labor Party, Justin, the People's Party, the Working Man's Party, of course, we had this story in the AFR where Anthony Albanese had a dinner at a Point Piper mansion, would have been just down the road from Malcolm Turnbull's place, to collect $1 million donation from a Chinese donor. People from big business there. Also, the former Victorian Premier Dan Andrews there, obviously well connected to China. Does this smack of the Working Families Party to you?
Well, what I don't like about this, and I love that you're trying to bait me on the Labor Party as though I was their spokesperson. It's always fun for me. But what I love about this, no, actually, what disappoints me about this, I should say, is they went to the PM's office. Their journalists went to the Prime Minister's office and said, "Listen, hey, what was it all about?" And they said, "We're not talking about it." And I think that's bloody outrageous. If you're the Prime Minister of a country and you're meeting with somebody like this, or meeting with anybody, there should be full transparency. And look, if they gave $1 million to the party, that's not the first time that a party's received a political donation. But come on, when you're the Prime Minister, you've got to be telling people about these things. You've got to be far more upfront than that. I don't like that. Scott Morrison's sort of hiding away kind of crap territory. Let's not get into that.
I do recall the Labor Party being more than a little interested in any fundraising dinners that Peter Dutton went to, for instance. So it's complete hypocrisy to shut down and not be transparent themselves. I want to go to the price of beer. There's some big news on beer prices today, and it tells us that the most expensive place to buy a beer in the country is in Melbourne. Now, James, you're a Melburnian native. You've escaped now to the cheaper,
slightly cheaper
town of Sydney.
Fairly
well done.
Slightly cheaper.
You came here for the cheap beer.
Now we know why you moved.
It came third. I think it goes Melbourne, Singapore, and then Sydney for the most expensive places to get a beer. But, for a nation that thinks of itself as like, larrikin culture, the sons and daughters of convicts, the amount of sin taxes and just like how much we raise taxes and prices on things that socially we're like, we just don't like that much. I'm thinking about tobacco excise as well. It's wild to me. And I know the government goes, well, people are just going to always drink beer, but we're supposed to be a nation of freedom. Like, why are the taxes so high?
Here's the trick they're pulling, and it's older than Vegemite: distraction politics. Instead of tackling the genuinely spicy question, should Australia become a republic, and how do we actually do that properly, we're stuck debating symbolism while the real issues simmer away untouched. It is like arguing about the curtains while the house is on fire. And speaking of things that should be fighting for you but aren't, let us have a chat about the unions. Once upon a time, unions were the blokes and Sheilas standing between workers and getting shafted. Now, increasingly, they are chasing abstract social causes while the bread and butter stuff, wages, job security, housing, gets left on the back burner. Members are left thinking, mate, how does this actually change my Tuesday? Then there is the freedom paradox, and honestly, it is a beauty. Politicians love standing at podiums banging on about liberty and choice, then turn around and enforce ironclad party discipline where crossing the floor is basically treason. Meanwhile, donations roll in quietly, including reports of hefty six-figure sums from generous benefactors at Flash Point Piper dinners, and somehow nobody in the PM's office fancies a chat about it. Funny how that works. Now for the bit that will really grind your gears. Australia loves to picture itself as the larrikin nation, the rebellious underdogs who will not be told what to do. Yet we are also the country where a beer in Melbourne can cost you more than one in Singapore. We are taxing the very culture we claim to celebrate. Freedom, apparently, comes with a hefty sin tax attached. So here's the real story beneath the flag debates and the football banter. Everyday Australians are not disillusioned for no reason. They're watching a system that talks a big game about freedom and fairness while quietly drifting further from their kitchen table concerns. Housing, cost of living, honest governance. That is where the real fight needs to happen, not in the culture war sideshow. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments below.